Hey everybody, welcome to the Dungeoncast. I'm Brian.
I'm Will.
This is the podcast where we talk about everything Dungeons & Dragons, from magnificent mages to magical marketplaces. And today we're reviewing Mordenkainen's Tome of Foes.
The Dungeoncast. All right, Brian.
Finally.
It's finally here.
It's finally here. There's been a lot of hype.
A lot of hype. And I have gotten my hands upon the tome.
I know.
And I've opened the tome.
I was very impressed.
And I've seen what it contains.
What does it contain?
A lot of stuff.
What's in there? Is it magical as fuck?
Yeah, a lot of it. A lot of it's very magical.
Oh, nice. Okay.
So you haven't gotten a chance to look at it yet.
No, I haven't. Not even a little bit.
So I'm going to be telling you what's in it, and you can tell me what you think of what's in it.
Okay. How does it look? I'm always
good.
Impressed
Art's
by
good.
the aesthetic of
the
books.
art's very good. I rate this probably 8 out of 10. I think it's
For art or overall?
Overall.
Okay.
Overall. Art, it's on par with everything else, which is good.
Oh,
good
I
art.
read on.
Yeah. I would say that there are some great things about it that I love. There are some disappointments that I have about it, but overall, I love it. It's really good. It's got a lot of great stuff. If you're a dungeon master, you definitely want this book.
Oh, yeah.
If you're a player, you might want it. So as for content for the players, it's basically all you're going to get is some cool race stuff.
Right.
You're going to get
what ended up making it?
So we'll go through the whole thing point by point.
Okay.
But for race stuff, there's some new Elven Sub-Races. You're going to get the Duergar race. There are some Tiefling variants, which I didn't think initially I was going to be a fan of before I opened it. But now that I've seen what they've done, I was like, oh, this is cool.
Yeah,
this is cool.
We have a good amount of Tiefling stuff already, right?
That's how I felt. That's how I felt about it. But the thing they did was really cool. And we'll get to that.
Everybody loves Tieflings.
I'm trying to think. You get the Gith, both the Gith Yankee and the Gith Zarya, which I know you don't really know anything about.
Yeah, because I saw more recently, I think they must have announced that was going to be in there. And like people have been commenting on our video about it.
Yeah, big section on the Gith. If you're a fan of the Gith, you're going to get some good Gith stuff in here.
Yeah, I have no idea what that is.
They're really cool. They're definitely getting their own episode. And that's pretty much it for the player side of things. Like you're just gonna get some races. Most of them are pretty cool. Some of them are whatever, but for the most part, they're all good. But is that worth buying a book for solely for some new races? Maybe not to some people. I might make that spend, but other people might not.
Well, there's a lot of obviously there's people that collect, and then there are people that kind of just are into lore.
True.
So you want to read that. But if you're really the wheelhouse seems to be the DM standpoint, like all of the planar lore, the demon devil stuff. Yeah,
the lore is really where it's at with this book. And if you're a dungeon master, you're pretty much going to want this book. It's going to have planar lore, like really deep lore on all the races. And it's just a great way to get good inspiration. And obviously, if you're running this in the Forgotten Realms setting, this is just information you probably want to know.
Right.
You can get stuff in the Blood War, like I said, with the Gith, all about them, all kinds of different gods. They really get into the Archdukes of Nessus. They're going to get into the Demon Lords. And there's a really big bestiary at the end. A bunch of monsters. And I'm a really big fan of a lot of the monsters they chose to add.
That's really cool.
So
that's where it's at for DMing, really.
Yeah, for DMing. Yeah, lots of monsters, really cool stuff. I really enjoyed it. So this book is set up it's set up very much like Volo's Guide, where it's front loaded with all the big lore sections, all divided by different races and different planes and whatnot. And then the back half is basically a big bestiary, or like Monster Manual 3 at this point. Yeah,
it feels like Xanathar was like 1.5 player's handbook or something like that. Volo's like 1.5 DMG, and now this is DMG 2.
Yeah, I would say so. Yeah, that's one of my gripes when it comes to this book and Volo's is in older editions, a Monster Manual 2 would have had all the monsters from Volo's and this book in one book.
Okay, so you don't need the old book. You can just update with the new book.
No, that's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is like what it took. It took 2 books in 5th edition. What it would have taken 1 book in a previous edition when it comes to the bestiary, when it comes to the monster manual.
Right, okay.
Like, it's like you said, with Volo's, it felt like a monster manual 1.5 because the amount of monsters they had didn't feel like a full monster manual, because it's not. It's half a monster manual, half a lore book.
Right, and there's the player races and stuff like that.
Yeah, there are things I like about this. There are things I don't like about this, but either way, overall, this is good. It's,
right,
good content. So, this book specifically is going to be a big cause for us here at the Dungeoncast to re-go over subjects.
Right. We're going to have to re-review everything because this changes like the
lots of changes were
lore.
made. Some of the biggest changes, the Raven Queen, they're definitely getting a new episode because when we did the Raven Queen episode, basically there was nothing in 5th edition about her yet, and everything that was about her was all from 4th edition because that's when she was introduced.
Yeah, and I think we kind of knew about Mordenkainen and her being in it when we did that episode.
I did not.
Oh, we didn't?
Yeah, I had no idea.
Maybe we found out shortly after. But
I was really irked like 2 weeks later.
I
was
remember
like, gosh,
that.
dang it. But no, it's okay. Like we're going to revisit and we're going to, it'll be Raven Queen Part 2. I don't know what we'll name it. It might just be called the Raven Queen Part 2.
Raven Queen again.
Yeah, something along those lines. And we're going to go over the completely revamped and new lore for her. But there's a lot of other stuff we're going to have to revisit. We're going to revisit the Archdukes of Nessus because some of them have been changed. Some of them are completely different people now. They've been replaced. And so we're just going to go over that.
Nice.
Some races are going to have to be revisited. Tieflings, elves, dwarves, maybe gnomes and halflings, maybe not. I haven't decided yet. The drow, definitely. Also, there's new races that we're going to talk about. So there's going to be new races of the realms coming out. Shatterkai, Eladrin, obviously the Gith and whatnot. So
hit me with what do we got to talk about in the book first?
Okay, let's point by point. We're going to go through the book from front to cover. Not going to go into too much details, but let's let the fans know what is in this book. So the first section is the Blood War, the ongoing story of the Blood War. Not so much how it started. They really don't get into that, but they kind of approach the Blood War from all 3 sides of the conflict.
Okay.
The demons, obviously, the devils, obviously, and then the neutral evil side of the Eugoliths, who are like mercenaries that work for both sides.
Okay.
And it really delves into like what the conflict's like, how the flow back and forth of the conflict goes, and like how the archdukes and the demon lords involve themselves.
Okay.
And also how this affects like adjacent planes and whatnot. Let me stop for a second. Actually, one of the cool things about this book that I noticed once I got through it was it's very aptly named when it's named Tome of Foes, because it really is highlighting the various eternal or ancient conflicts throughout all of the cosmos, like the Blood War, the conflict between Corellon and Lolth and the elves.
It's not Mordenkainen's foes; it's just people that are foes.
Exactly. the ongoing war between the dwarves and the Duergar, the ongoing war between the Gith Yankee, the Gith Zarya, and the Mind Flayers.
Nice.
And so on and so forth.
So it's just a catalog of information,
basically,
from like because they do like a canonical thing with the books here, right? Like
yeah.
Like how Xanathar's guide is like, the beholder Xanathar is like looking deep into the underbelly of the society or whatever it was.
Yes, very much.
Okay.
It will. This book gets into the current hierarchy of hell. The current archdukes, and it even gets deeper into some of the dukes that serve the archdukes, which I thought was really cool. It stats out a few of them. We get a lot of Tiamat lore, which is nice. Not a lot, but we get some Tiamat lore.
I bet it's gross.
Get Tiamat lore I would have liked to have had when I did the Tiamat episode, but it's not enough to warrant a new Tiamat episode.
Okay, we can cover it here.
Yeah. You get cult lore for each archduke, which I thought was pretty cool.
Well, that's cool. Like the Earth cult or whatever. Or not, I said Earth cult.
But like on the mortal plane, the cults that follow the various archdukes. So like their hierarchy, their goals, and their signature spells they get for being in the cult of Mephistopheles or Mammon or whoever.
That's cool. That's really cool.
Really cool stuff. So the Tiefling variants are... Okay, so the way they did Tiefling variants I thought was really cool. Basically... The initial idea of tieflings, the initial idea of tieflings was that you genetically have fiendish blood in your bloodstream.
Yeah,
and,
they breed true.
It could it could spontaneously manifest itself just randomly throughout generations of life. Like you could have like 7 generations of human, and then suddenly a tiefling. And then that changed over to no, it's a curse, and they breed true.
Right. Okay.
And it was a curse known by Asmodeus, and that's why they all have this uniform look of like reddish skin and the horns and all that. Mm-hmm. So the way they've kind of changed things up is like, okay, that's specifically Asmodeus. Tieflings look like your standard tiefling. He's the one who did the big curse. They're probably the most numerous of tieflings.
Right.
But other archdukes can do the same thing, or you could be related to one of the archdukes, in your genomes or whatever. And there are variants for each specific archduke.
Nice.
And for each specific variant, you get a different ability stat increases, And that's for both ability stats. So it's not even like they're sub-races. They're almost like their own little race.
Nice.
And you know how when you're a tiefling, you get like your Infernal Legacy spells?
Yeah.
Your Infernal Legacy spells change completely depending on which Archduke you are descendant from.
That's a lot of flavor.
It was a lot of flavor. It was really cool. I'm going to drink some of this.
Yeah, sure. I was wondering when... So the aesthetic is different too of them, like the color of the skin or like the way
there
the
were
horns
some
are shaped or
images
something like that.
that made it apparent that there's supposed to be differences.
Okay.
I can't remember if they actually wrote down aesthetic differences, but I remember there was a image of like a Zarya tiefling, and she had like dark brown skin and white hair and like crazy looking horns that kind of went off to the side like this.
Oh, nice.
Was a little bit taller,
like an antler kind of look.
Yeah, kind of.
But maybe not.
Well, Zarya is like a fallen angel, so
yeah, okay.
There was like almost a fiendish / celestial look,
like the ASMR kind of,
but not really.
Okay,
it's hard to. It's really hard to describe.
That's interesting.
Yeah, so I imagine
I can't wait to get my hands on this shit and look at it all.
Yeah. So, after that, it kind of got into the extensive lore in the Abyss and all of the more prominent demon lords, which was nice. It was really cool.
Okay.
Demogorgon, all them. And they're all statted out.
Shout out to Demogorgon.
Indeed. They're all statted out in the book. They just took all the stats that were in the, Rage of Demons.
Okay.
That module. And they just brought them on over, which is good. You want them here. Like, I think the fact that if they had been stuck in this really obscure module would have been lame. So.
Yeah, I barely even know about that.
Exactly.
I don't think I've even cracked it open.
Oh, yeah. No, all the Demon Lords are in the back of that book, and it's awesome.
Oh, that's cool.
Oh, yeah, and then it got into basically the Demon Lords can have cults, too, and they have followers, and they can gift what are like boons, almost like a Warlock Patron, but not quite. This is more powerful.
Okay.
And there was a boon for each of the Demon Lords, and they did really drastic shit, like really increasing and decreasing certain ability scores depending on which deity it was, and then you had access to a bunch of different spells.
Nice.
So if like you got the boon of Demogorgon, I don't remember the specifics.
That's the boon I would get.
I know. But if you got that boon, it would be something like a +5 to your strength and a +4 to your constitution, but a -7 to your charisma or some shit
and
like that.
+1 to a head.
Yeah, sure that, and then a host of spells. So.
Nice, that's cool.
It was pretty cool. It's very much more geared for NPCs. This is the type of stuff to really break a PC. But, I mean, we're talking about +5s and +6s and -5s and -6s.
Yeah, you want to do some actual.
There was even +8s and stuff.
Put the bicep on it. Shit.
Right.
Okay.
So I thought that was pretty cool. After that, we kind of leave the whole fiendish thing and start getting into more of the. I wouldn't even say mortal realm races, but your basic races. We dive into elves.
Okay.
And
some expansion on that.
I think that this was some of my favorite lore that I found in this book. And we'll get into why, but they get into the origins of elves, what are called the Primal Elves, the original elves, which are not very much like what we would consider like our run-of-the-mill elves.
Okay.
And it kind of gets into the lore of Corellon and Lolth and the betrayal of Lolth, or the betrayal of Corellon by Lolth, and the very splitting off into like the zillions of type of elves. And it kind of gets into like why there are kind of elves everywhere and why they're all so different.
Okay.
So we get into the Shadowk High and the Shadowfell and the Eladrin and the Fae.
Those are all elf variations.
Yeah, the sea elves, the wood elves and the high elves, the dark elves.
Or drow.
Yeah, or drow. And just it really just dives into it. And
I never really thought about how many there are. There's a lot.
Right. There are a lot of types of elves. And it gets into the life cycle and the soul cycle of elves. And like, there's only a set amount of elven souls that Corellon created. So like when an elf is born, it's just a soul being recycled.
Yeah, it's a reincarnation.
Yeah, it's a reincarnation. And there's this whole thing about how like the elves are supposed to be able to, when their life ends, return to their home plane of Arvandor along Corellon's side, but they can't do so because of the betrayal of Lolth. And until the Lolth's betrayal is until Lolth is destroyed and the Dark Elves return, like none of them can return to Corellon's side.
So they're just reborn into the cycle.
They're just reborn. And like it really gets into the psychology of elves considering their history and their extensive longevity and like the whole long view of not just their long lives, but like the life of the cosmos and like their place in it and how they're kind of like lost people.
Yeah,
and
man.
Like, and
your soul gets tired.
Yeah, and also it gets into the taboo of half elves and why it's so taboo. Because okay, if there's only so many elf souls and they're being reborn constantly, what the hell is a half elf?
Right.
Like, is a half soul? Like, they don't understand, and like the reality of it is scary to them, so they don't want to kind of go there.
Oh man, okay.
Yeah, and so
that's
gets
weird.
Yeah, it gets crazy. It gets into the Elven Pantheon. Okay, so what I like about this is elves in D&D have always had like this weird place to me when it comes to like fantasy, because they're very much based off Tolkien elves.
Yeah.
But they're so different from Tolkien elves. They're not very much like Tolkien elves at all in a way, because Tolkien elves are immortal and like they got this real melancholy to them.
You're right.
And Tolkien elves are based off Norse mythology, and yet D&D elves were so tied up in the Fae and Celtic stuff. And even though they have nothing to do with that really in real mythology, this is a weird. What I like about this book is it takes a lot of like the loose ends of D&D lore and really tries to tie them up. And I think no better than here with elves. It really just kind of like, okay, we got all these elves all over the place. No one explains any of this. No one explains like why the elves are so different than the thing they're based off of. Like we've been trying to have our cake and eat it too for so long without explaining it. And now it's like, now we can understand why elves are so sad all the time and why they're so reclusive all the time and why the drow and all other elves really hate each other. Because like in the eyes of like the high elves and the wood elves, like, the drow are denying all elves their promised land.
Right.
And like, so there's some real animosity there. And Lolth, of course, really leading the drow astray and all this stuff. And it really paints the drow in a way that like hasn't been done before in a good way. Drow are now more redeemable because they're made more human, thank God. And then also, like, it doesn't make the other elves look like racist bigots. Like, no, they're legitimately upset for a good reason.
Yeah, okay, that makes a lot more sense.
Yeah, and it also dives into like the different special elven spellcrafts, like blade singing and stuff like that.
Yes.
It talks a little bit about that.
That's
which
cool.
is really
I like that expansion.
So, yeah.
I feel like elves are kind of put on a pedestal in this game.
They are. I mean,
across fantasy, really, because they're elves. They're like
it's because of Tolkien.
They're built that way.
Yeah, it's because in Tolkien's world they very much are, because like the elves are like almost in a way the favored children of the chief deed. I can't remember, although that's not quite true because he gives humans like the gift of mortality, which is supposed to be good for them. I can't remember. Anyways,
don't worry, you'll die.
Yeah, don't worry, you'll die, and you'll appreciate life more for it, or some weird.
Yeah,
stuff
like
that.
right around year 40, you're gonna just like realize all that shit.
Yeah, and then after it kind of gets through all that, we get to the sea elves and the Elijah and Shatterkai. I don't think the sea elves get a big section, which is good because we don't need sea elves.
Yeah, what's a sea elf?
They
like,
basically are like Tritons. But here's the thing. Okay, I didn't know about Tritons before 5th edition. I did know about sea elves because sea elves have been a thing for a long time, a really obscure thing. And then Tritons came out and was like, oh, okay, this is replacing sea elves. But now we're getting sea elves. I'm just like, we don't need sea elves. We have Tritons and we have water genasi. We're good.
Yeah.
Like,
okay. So wait, is a sea elf like, do they breathe underwater kind of thing?
Yeah, they're like Aquaman. They're like Tritons. They look like Tritons.
Oh.
But the thing was, originally Tritons were like mer people.
Yeah.
And now they're more like Aquamen.
Yes.
Like fish men with
boys.
legs.
Right.
Which is kind of what sea elves kind of were. Except for sea elves, I think, at least the Dragonlance, they were more elven looking than green and fish looking. But now they're being depicted basically, they look like Tritons.
That's dumb.
Anyways, moving on.
Yeah.
We get into Shatterkai and the Raven Queen and all that. And then we move on to dwarves. And it gets into the ancient war of dwarves and Duergar and like how that's never going to end. And but it dives into dwarf origins and their chief deity Moradin, their clans and how like their culture, their psychology, and the entire Dwarven Pantheon. And then it does all of that stuff the same for the Duergar and their way of life and why they see things the way they are. And they're various.
The Duergar are like dark dwarves, right?
That's in a very simple terms. They're like the drow of dwarves.
Right.
And they will get their own episode and we'll talk about it more there.
Yeah, okay.
So after dwarves, we get into the Gith and the great war between the Gith Zarya and the Gith Yankee.
Yeah, let's go into this a little bit because there's a lot of hype on the channel about it, and I have no idea what the fuck anyone is talking about, and I haven't looked into it.
The Gith are a really cool race. I can't remember their source setting, It might be Spelljammer. It might be Planescape. It's probably Planescape.
Okay.
Either way, it doesn't matter. They are a people that live in the astral planes, but they're not like, they're not like celestials or anything. They're like just people. They're
just randos.
They look like
they're crumbs.
A cross
leftovers.
between elves and goblins in a way. Like they have like the physique and pointed ears of goblins. Or not of goblins, of elves.
Okay.
And they're tall and they're humanoid, but they have like a greenish skin and it's like kind of scaly. And they have like these weird like noses that are kind of like flat, like almost looks like people with their nose chopped off in a way.
Okay.
Like they're kind of freaky looking, but they're really cool. They're
Pretty
really
celestial
advanced.
snake people.
The Gith were.
They look like, you just described Voldemort pretty much to me.
Kinda, yeah. In a way, they have a similar look. They definitely do.
Holy shit.
The Gith were originally the slave race of the Illithids or the Mind Flayers.
Okay.
For thousands and thousands of years. Eventually, they led a revolt, and because of their hard life and history and their animosity towards the Mind Flayers, they had become a really violent and angry race and very war-bound. And,
Okay.
they're very powerful. And they have a special ability to forge like these silver blades that like are just really magical and dope. Man. Like Gith Zarya's silver sword is like a +3 blade.
Like normal people pick it up and they're like, this is fucking really magical. Like, you should be carrying this.
And eventually I think they win their freedom. But there's like right before they win their freedom, there's actually a philosophical break in the Gith. There's some philosopher guy, I can't remember his name. It starts with a Z. That's why they're called the Gith Zarya. But he basically says like they've become too monstrous, and he wants to lead the Gith on a different path, a more peaceful path, a more balanced path, a very neutral path. And they end up breaking free from the Mind Flayers, but then they're warring amongst themselves. And basically the Gith Zarya, which are the more philosophical monk types with like psionic abilities, they end up going to the plane of limbo, and that's where their stronghold is. And that's like the true plane of all things neutral.
Okay.
Neither law nor chaos, I think. Although they are a lawful neutral people. While the Gith Yankee still dwell out on the astral sea, and they're like space pirates, basically.
Oh, that's awesome.
They sail the seas, and they're evil as fuck, and
Holy
like
shit.
they fuck people up. Yeah, that's the thing. Like, yeah, they were a slave race, but that doesn't make them good people.
Yeah,
like they're evil as shit, and they actually end up teaming up with Tiamat. Kind of helps them out sometimes. They have like a weird alliance with her.
Gross.
Where she provides them with stuff if she gets stuff in return from them. Like it's a very loose alliance, and it's one I didn't really know about before reading this book, but I was like, oh, I didn't know that. That's interesting. So yeah, Tiamat actually gave them some of the power they needed to break free from the Mind Flayers. So
cool. Okay.
But yeah, that's the Gith. They'll get their own episode. They're really cool.
Seems interesting.
Yeah, and I think it's time for a short rest.
Let's do it.
All right.
Hey everybody, it's that part of the episode where we stop talking about that last thing, we talk about something else, and that something else is always usually you guys listening to the show. We're loving it. We're loving that you love it. Thank you so much for listening. We really appreciate you guys for being here and making it to this part of the episode. We wanted to drop this episode now, and it messed up our short rest continuity.
It did.
So we have other short rests recorded where we're talking about stuff that happened last week, and that just basically add 1 week to anything you hear for the next 2 weeks that we talk about.
Indeed.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
I'm confused.
Yeah, and we are giving away this book in 2 different contests, and the day we're recording this is the day before?
The day before it's officially drops.
I think so, yeah.
Because I put the episode out on Sunday, but like that's just a buffer me.
And we got 2 more episodes that we recorded a week ago. So it's going to be a few episodes, but we're going to get you guys shouted out on the show. You'll know who you are anyways. We're going to shout you out on Twitter.
Yeah.
But congratulations to our 2 winners.
Yeah, congrats, guys. Thank you all so much for participating in the contest. It is over. We'll be running another one soon. We don't know what exactly yet, but Will and I will discuss that, and we'll let you know what the rules and stuff are when that happens.
Yeah.
But yeah, thank you, everybody. We wanted to get the word out about the show, and you guys help make that happen by answering the contest. If you want to help support us, you can find us on soundcloud.com/Dungeoncast. Leave us some love. You can find us on YouTube. You can find us on lots of podcast softwares. My favorite is Podbean. I use Podbean for all my podcasting needs. I really do, and it's a good app. I like it.
Yeah, I like Podbean. Podbean's a pretty good one. I use Podbean as well. I used to use Podcast Addict, but
it's I
found Podbean a little better. Yeah, I would say so.
Yeah, no, Podbean's where it's at, I think. But yeah, if you guys want, you can check out our Patreon at patreon.com/thedungeoncast, or if you want to send us an email, you can do so at thedungeoncast@gmail.com. Or find us on Twitter at the Dungeoncast. But really, the best way you can help us support the show is to tell people about it, and you guys do, and I can't thank you enough. Thank you guys so much. It's great to have you all here in the short rest.
Indeed,
yes,
indeed.
But all good things must come to an end,
including short rest.
Let's go back to the show.
Back to the show.
Whoa, it's a podcast.
Indeed. Okay, Brian. So we're back.
We're back.
So the next things that come up in the book after the Gith are actually, I kind of got I mixed up the Gith. The Gith actually comes after these next two things, but it was more interesting, so it came up earlier in my notes.
Oh, okay.
But then I was like, you know what? I should probably go back and talk about some of these other things. So they dive into halflings for a bit, and this lore is actually pretty interesting. They really get into the concept of halfling luck.
Oh, yeah, that's cool.
Yeah, they have that feature. I can't remember the name of the feature, but it has something to do with luck where they can re-roll any crit fail.
Miss, yeah.
Any one on a die.
I think isn't it just, well, lucky is I think it's just called lucky, isn't it?
I think you're right, yeah. And so it basically, it talks about how much the halflings believe in luck and how they often have these complex superstitions that they live by.
Right.
Because of it. And it gets even into how others perceive halfling luck and how it's like almost this tangible thing, and people actually study it because like it's just super uncanny how much these halflings like get into these crazy situations and somehow survive when they have no business surviving.
Right. The odds are in their favor somehow.
Yeah, exactly. And like the halflings chalk it up to some goddess of luck who like really looks out for them.
And I just watched Deadpool 2, and Domino is in Deadpool 2. And
oh yeah, her luck thing. Yeah,
it was really cool.
That's pretty neat.
I'm definitely going to incorporate stuff like that.
Yeah, yeah. I would say it's somewhat similar to that. Either way, anyone who knows halflings agrees that halfling luck is a thing. It exists.
I think it's a thing across the board. Like, it's not just halfling luck, it's luck in general, but the halflings somehow, there's something about them that focuses it in, and it's like part of their statistical ability. Exactly.
It even talks about it just seems like fate wants to protect these guys because they're just so nice and they live in this world with all these horrible things. And it's just like fate's just looking out for them a little extra more.
Yeah, some luck god is like, oh, they're so small and cute.
Pretty much.
Must protect.
It also dives into what life is like for a halfling and like their culture and their day to day.
I'm very interested in that.
Very Shire like, but that's how it should be. It gets into their pantheon as well. They got a lot of different halfling gods.
They like biscuits or crumpets or whatever the fuck it is.
I'm sure it gets in the eating habits. I'm not sure, actually. It has a nice write-up on gnomes after this, and it really gets into the cultural differences between rock gnomes, forest gnomes, and deep gnomes. And
that's
also
cool.
Their gods and all. It's the same,
I always wonder, like, in the Forgotten Realms setting, like, how much interaction the little people, the little folk of D&D have with each other.
They definitely get lumped together a lot.
Yeah, like, dwarves are secular, pretty much. They keep to themselves, like, they're very much like elves. They're just short, stocky elves, to me.
I don't know. Dwarves and elves are drastically different people.
But they behave so, like high and mighty.
True, but in different ways.
Yeah.
Like the dwarves are very proud of their culture and very loud about it.
Maybe that's what it is.
Very
they're
boisterous.
They're both so proud in similar ways.
They're very. I mean, the dwarves are very earthy people. They're very down to earth, salt of the earth kind of people. While elves are more philosophical a lot of the times and
ethereal.
They have an arrogance where it's like they know they're better than you. And the thing is, they're probably right in a way, so it rubs a lot of people the wrong way, including people who are playing the game. They don't like elves because of that fact.
Yeah.
But while dwarves, they don't necessarily think they're better than you, but they do think they're better than you.
I was gonna say, like, I'm pretty sure they do.
Yeah, they're more in your face about it. But here's
they might be like, you might be tall, but I do all this dope shit.
I guess the difference is like, the elf knows he's better than you, and he's probably right. The dwarf thinks he's better than you, but you're pretty sure he's not right. Anyways,
okay.
Yeah, so after this, it gets to the bestiary. There's a whole bunch of stuff, a lot of high-powered stuff. It's really, really cool. I'm a bigger fan of the monsters in this than in Volos, which is pretty big thing because I was also a fan of Volos.
Nice.
So I wrote down some of the monsters that really stood out to me as being very cool. So we'll talk about them a little bit. Deathlocks. What happens to a warlock that fails or displeases their patron greatly?
Ooh.
They become an undead magical thrall. And these things are scary and cool as fuck.
It's like, I gave you this contract. You violated section A1 and B1. So per section
Undead
CA. Yeah. Sorry, man.
I wish this book had come out before we had done the Halloween adventure. Because not only are the Deathlocks very fitting for that adventure, there's a lot of undead in this book that I would have probably wanted to use. I ended up homebrewing a bunch of stuff, and that was fine.
And it was good.
It was good.
If you guys want to catch our Halloween special that we did, that's in our $10 Patreon tier. You guys can go check it out on Patreon. But it was a lot of fun, and I tried to make it as scary as possible. I think I did an okay job. It was a good game.
But yeah, Deathlocks, very cool. They're just, these undead humanoids with like magical powers, and like depending on what their patron was, they get like different spells. I just thought it was a really cool idea.
It is cool. I like
There's
that.
a whole menagerie of demons and devils in this book, which is no big surprise to anybody.
I mean, that was like pretty much the main focus, I feel like, pre the book dropping.
It was definitely the biggest draw. It's the thing people have been the most excited about. They have all the prominent demon lords from Rage Demons all statted out, which is great. They have the devilish servants of Tiamat called the Abishai.
Okay.
We didn't really talk about them in the Tiamat episode, and I don't know why, because I knew about them. I don't know. I just got lost in all the other stuff we were talking about. But these are the main fiendish servants of Tiamat in her home and on her plane.
Okay.
And they basically are, picture a dragon, any of the chromatics, picture any of them, but the size of a humanoid, and standing on their hind legs, and also having more like devilish wings.
Okay, so almost a dragonborn.
Almost a
until
dragon.
you said devilish wings, I was thinking about dragonborn.
They're less humanoid.
Okay.
They're like literally if a
dragon-like.
dragon walked on its hind legs. And was also
so it's got these big front
8
legs
feet tall.
kind of to like walk as if it would walk on a quadrupedal kind of.
Yes, exactly.
Okay. I see what you're saying.
Yeah. And their wings are more like a devil's wings than a dragon's wings.
Okay.
Which
that's
dragon
cool.
wings and devil wings kind of look similar anyways.
Yeah.
But like they're these weird devil dragon men.
Yeah, okay. That makes sense.
And
It's
they're
just like
really fucking cool looking.
yeah, they're just like flavored to be in the Tiamat's lair or whatever.
Yeah, when you get your hands on the book, take a look at them because they look really cool.
Nice.
And they come in various powers, and they're her main like hordes of demons or devils, I should say. And
How gross
they're
are
cool.
they?
Just as gross as her, man.
Pretty fucking gross. Okay.
So they have some of the former archdukes and one current archduke and some regular dukes of hell statted out. Baal, Geryon, Huttigian, I don't know how you pronounce this dude's name.
Okay.
And Moloch are like the dukes, so they're not archduke level, but they're extremely powerful and unique devils. But then they have the actual archduke Zarya, who is the
that like XA, or does it start with a Z?
Z.
Okay.
Zarya is a fallen angel, and she is now the Archduke of Avernus, the first layer of hell.
Oh, okay, cool.
She took Bel's place. Bel was just re-demoted back to the general, which is what he was before he took over.
Right. Okay.
So it was really a holding place.
Yeah.
And
like they were just Bel was just like temp filling in for while the manager was
indeed
position was open.
And Bel serves Zariel no problem, although he's secretly hoping that she sabotages herself because it looks like she's gonna.
Oh, okay.
And then he'll get the job again.
Yeah. They don't want to make him a permanent promote, but
yeah, Zariel's kind of like, she's kind of crazy and she's kind of super aggressive, and so
I mean those things sound fitting.
Yeah, she was an angel who was assigned the job of watching the blood war.
Okay.
And the fight between the devils and the demons. And
right.
She was kind of zealous to the point where she's like, screw this. Why are we watching this? Like, we should be aligning all the forces of heaven and just wiping all these people out.
Ooh.
And she kept trying to get it done and trying to get it done and trying to get it done and being told no. Mm-hmm. And eventually she just loses herself and just jumps into the fight and starts killing and
picks a side,
like her and a lot of her followers. So a lot of angels show up.
Wow.
And they start wrecking face until they get overwhelmed by numbers.
Right.
And she gets spared, and Asmodeus like gives her a deal, like, become an archduke.
Oh, like she goes down there as a neutral party to try and like just end everybody.
But like real talk, she was just becoming lawful evil over time. Like she just was. Maybe because of her proximity to all the evil. But you know, like angels aren't infallible in this world, which we'll discuss in the angels episode.
I mean, angels aren't like infallible in most settings. So.
Okay, that's a good point. But angels will get their own episode.
Okay.
Either way, she becomes the new Archduke of Avernus. And
D&D angels sound like. Have you played Darksiders? Where you're like one of the four horsemen of the apocalypse.
I've heard of it, but I've never played it.
The angels in there are fucking nuts. You have to fight angels and demons. It's a good game.
Yeah, I've heard good things about it. So basically, Asmodeus kind of gives her the thing she wants anyways. Like, she's probably more on the side of the devils anyways, which we'll get into.
Like the lawful stuff.
Yeah, the lawful stuff. We're going to talk a lot about this in the Asmodeus episode, which is coming soon. Everyone.
Oh, whoa. Everybody hold on.
We just had to wait for this book to come out. And honestly, there was really no reason to.
I know.
I was just worried there was. After what happened with the Raven Queen, I was like, man, I'm not doing any gods till this dang book comes out.
Right. Yeah. No, that made sense. But
okay.
We've already been damaged.
Important note on Zarya before we move on in the bestiary of this book is she statted out. She is very likely the weakest of the Archdukes.
The first layer.
Her CR her challenge rating is 26.
That's
very,
really
very high.
Fucking high.
Demogorgon and Orcus are easily the two most powerful of all the demon lords.
Okay.
No contest. Their CR is 26. This goes to show you how much more powerful the devils are and why the fight is at a stalemate. Because there's way less devils than there are demons.
Okay.
Demons are theoretically infinite.
Right.
They just never stop.
Right.
Devils, though there are very, very many of them,
they're finite.
and they're constantly being replenished, there is not an infinite amount of them or even close to it.
To make more.
Yeah.
They keep them in their bad wallets or whatever.
So I just like seeing this established because it's like a thing I already knew, but we didn't have stats to back it up for 5th edition.
Oh, that's
like,
cool.
Look at Zarya, the weakest of all the Archdukes, is literally on par with the strongest of all the demon lords. Like, and Asmodeus is a god.
Right.
So, anyways, just fun note. Moving on. Another cool addition to the bestiary in this book were elder elementals. Now, these are extremely powerful, like 23 plus challenge rating elemental monstrosities.
Dude, nice.
And there's one for each element. There's the Leviathan, the Phoenix, the Elder Tempest, and Zaratan. He's like this huge earth turtle.
Oh,
And
shit. Cool.
I was like, this is cool. Like, I don't know when I'll ever use this, but just the fact that they exist, this is awesome.
I just had what if one of these things just like kind of walks by and you have your players roll initiative, but like it's not paying any attention to them at all.
Yeah.
And they're just like trying to kill it. And it's like, what are we doing? And it just walks away.
I picture a really awesome fight where like the Tarask has come and he's going to destroy everything. And like you have to awaken the 4 elder elementals to fight it.
To fight the Tarask.
Yeah. So the Phoenix, the Leviathan, the Elder Tempest, and Zaratan are the only 4 that can come together to stop the Tarask.
That's cool. Everybody can ride one.
Yeah. Yeah, there we go.
Nice.
So yeah, not much to say about them. They're just really cool looking. The art's great.
They sound
I'm
badass.
glad they exist. That's awesome.
Hell yeah.
Moving on. So there is a race of people called the Giff. Not to be confused with the Gith.
So that's a TH, and then the one you're talking about now is an F?
2 Fs.
2
Giff.
Fs.
That's
2 more than I ever give.
They are spacefaring hippopotamus humanoids with an extremely extensive military, and they wield guns.
Man, fuck that description. What the
And
fuck?
they are from
What are you talking
They
about?
are from Spelljammer, and they're
What?
like these weird steampunk spacefaring hippo men
With guns?
with guns, and they're really fucking cool. And I was like, oh, this is dope. This is awesome.
What the hell are you talking about?
Yeah, it's a thing.
This is real?
This is a thing. It's in the book. You should look at it.
Oh my God. Okay.
Yeah, no, a lot of people have been excited about them being in here, and they are in here.
What?
And the only a lot of people were excited about like Planescape and Spelljammer lore. Which
I saw a lot of that.
Spoiler alert.
I didn't know what that was.
One of my gripes is that there isn't basically any. We'll get to that, but like let's talk about the
Are you
happiness.
for real? There were a lot of people that were hyped for that, and that didn't show up.
We
got space hippos.
We'll talk about criticisms towards the end, but first let's talk about the space hippos because they're really cool. The only crime when it comes to the GIF is that they weren't given a racial template. Because they're very obviously a people,
right?
With,
but
intelligence.
they got treated
and
like
whatnot.
monsters.
But they just got put in the bestiary. I'm like, well, where's my GIF racial stat? Like,
Yeah.
geez. But other than that, they're really cool. I'm sure you can homebrew one up pretty easily. And
I mean, hippos are my least favorite mammal.
Really?
Well, like I fear them more than any
they're
mammal.
assholes in real life. They're really violent monstrosities.
Just the largest, most territorial bastards.
Yeah, they are. But the babies are cute. Anyways, moving on. Last interesting note I have to say. There's a lot more in this book, but one thing I noticed: a lot of undead, a lot of high level undead.
Ooh, it's good for my game.
They have Skull Lords, which I can't explain to you why I'm so stoked, but the Skull Lord was one of my favorite monsters in the Monster Manual from 4th edition.
Okay,
and the fact that it just wasn't in 5th edition just left me kind of sad, but we got it. So Skull Lords are like this weird thing where it's like it's a skeleton with 3 skulls.
Cool.
But like they're like the 3 faces are like almost on one big skull in a way. Kinda. That's not a very good description.
So it's like a die.
It's like a 3-headed
different faces
skeletal
on their
wizard.
faces. Okay.
And it's basically 3 wizards did a ritual to become a Skull Lord for eternal life. It was probably easier than becoming a lich.
Yeah, they're like, no, that lich shit, it's sketchy.
Yeah,
We're gonna do the Skull Lord thing.
It's just a really cool visual and a really cool, like, it can be your villain. Your villain, instead of a lich, you give a Skull Lord. I just think it's cool. But they also have things in the book where it's like, what if you try to become a lich but fail? What happens to you? One of the things that can happen to you is you can become what's called a bone claw, which is basically like this skeletal zombie monster with like these huge like claw-like hands, and your soul basically fails to make it to the phylactery that you were trying to seal into.
Okay.
And so it drifts about and it ends up searching out the closest wicked sentient creature it can find. And when it does that, it fuses itself to that creature. Okay. And basically that creature kind of becomes the phylactery. And now you, as a being, are beholden to the will of that creature. And you become like this servant monstrosity.
Oh, shoot.
Yeah. And you retain some of your intelligence, but like you're a thrall
just enough
now.
to do bidding.
Yeah, basically.
Cool.
And it looks really cool and scary. So that's all I got for the bestiary. There's plenty of other stuff. There's like star spawn and all kinds of other cool shit, but you know, we only have so much time on the show. But let's talk about criticisms, because this book, although it's great, I do have a few gripes with it. I don't kind of want to talk about it.
Mine is the Hippo Men.
I think the Hippo Men are great. My problem is there's not enough Hippo Men. I need more Hippo Men.
You need more?
Yeah, I need more stuff from other planes of existence, because I'm tired of Forgotten Realms being the only thing. Like, okay, so that's my criticism. They really tried to sell people on like, oh, this is going to be like your Manual of the Planes book. And in some ways it is, but they really talked about, oh, there's going to be Spelljammer stuff, Planescape stuff. But there's really almost none of that. I think there's one blurb to say that like Forgotten Realms isn't the only universe. Ooh.
It is right now, though.
Yeah, it is right now.
Buy this book.
Yeah, and that's basically it. Like, cool, we got the Giff, but like we don't got anything that comes along with the Giff.
For sure.
So that's one gripe. My other gripe is they advertise this book as not being another monster manual type book like Volos, except for that's exactly what it is.
Yeah.
It's basically
it's laid out the same way.
It's basically Volos 2 in a way, except for different guy this time, Mordenkainen.
Right.
He's cool. He's also not a Forgotten Realms character, but we're not going to talk about that really.
Apparently he is now.
Yeah. So yeah, that's my second gripe. And my third gripe is more subjective. I'm not a fan of some of the personal lore changes they made, like the Raven Queen. I'm not a fan of what they did with her.
You know what? Me neither. I mean, it's cool in its own way, but
yeah,
you tied it to
drastically different.
You tied it. You should have made a brand new thing.
Obviously,
why'd you call it the Raven Queen?
Yeah.
Now it's like, well, I can't have both things. They're so different. They should be.
They're drastically different from each other, and it's a very obvious corporate move. They're like, oh, people like the Raven Queen. Oh, but she doesn't belong in Forgotten Realms. Well, put her in Forgotten Realms. So it's like, oh, well, we already kind of have gods of death and undeath and all this stuff, and like she really wouldn't fit. It's like, oh, well, make something up, like fit her in here, make her this.
Right.
And that's what they did. And it's like, oh, so you basically made up something, slapped the Raven Queen name on it, and we're done.
Exactly.
So,
that's exactly what it feels like, because that's exactly what
it was
happened.
a very forced corporate move, and I'm not a fan of it, but it is what it is. Whatever.
I mean, you still have the other version. I mean, there's nothing that says that you can't just do what you want.
Absolutely.
That's this game. And like the Matt Mercer Raven Queen is incredibly popular. You know, that's like a really good. I think our video is mostly on the Raven Queen is mostly based off of that type of feel for that goddess.
Yeah, I mean that, and she was very popular in 4th edition,
right?
Too, so, yeah. But yeah, so they drastically change her, and by proxy, they drastically changed the Shadow Kai. I'm not a huge fan of it, but I mean, it's not terrible. It's not the worst thing ever.
Do you think it's because we're like accustomed to our homebrew version that we love so much?
For me personally, it's more about like the obvious corporate move. It's like,
Yeah,
this
no,
was
I get
not
that.
done from a creatively honest place. This was not done as a creatively honest move. I don't care what they say. They're lying if they say that.
Yeah.
And I could just see it, and it just leaves a bad taste in my mouth, because it's like, the thing is, like, most of the time lore changes from edition to edition, but usually there's like a vein of continuity that stays true.
Sure, I get that. Okay.
But in this, it's just a complete change.
Like, yeah,
she's
like-
a different person who became the Raven Queen for a different reason. She's not even a goddess, and like, yeah, it's just completely different. So, is what it is. Whatever.
Yeah. What are you gonna do?
Life goes on. She'll get an episode, and it'll be fun anyways.
Yep.
So, that basically is all I got on Mordenkaisen's Tome of Foes. You got any questions? You got anything you want to add?
No.
Any comments?
I
Any
mean, was
concerns?
there anything like about Mordenkainen himself in the book?
There was a bit. I skipped over it because I wasn't interested.
Oh.
But yeah, they talk about him a bit, of course. It'd be weird if they didn't.
I thought it would be cool if were there like any new spells introduced in this book or anything like that?
No spells.
See, I was kind of hoping they would do like a little, like a pamphlet sized amount of information on Mordenkainen himself with like maybe a stat block. I think that might be asking for too much, but like a spell list, like things Mordenkainen can do and who Mordenkainen is.
Yeah, that's not really something they've done in 5th edition yet, where they start standing out like prominent like D&D characters.
Right.
Like,
I kinda-
Dritz or Elminister or Mordenkainen.
or Xanathar or Volo.
Or Xanathar himself, yeah. Or Volo. Although I don't think Volo would have stats much. He's
Probably
really
not.
a
But I
fighter.
mean, like the idea of it is like this. You named this book Mordenkainen Tome of Foes or Volo's Guide to Everything,
Volo's
and you
Guide to
didn't.
Monsters.
Or yeah, and you didn't like expand on the like I don't know. Like it feels weird. Like yeah, it's Mordenkainen's Tome of Foes. I don't know. Maybe it's like they're approaching it from this like
They said
well, he wrote it.
He's the
or-
frame of the concept of the book. And
Right.
okay, so it's been an interesting thing they've been doing in 5th edition by doing this. It's been creative, it's been cool, but it has been a little convoluted as to like, okay, if I didn't play D&D and like know the way 5th edition works with his books, I wouldn't know to go like Volo's Guide to Monsters. Oh, there's races in there. Oh, Xanathar's Guide to Everything. There's
Yeah.
classes in there. It used to be Player's Handbook 1, and then they came out with a Player's Handbook 2, and then sometimes a Player's Handbook 3. Like
Now I need like I need to go on the internet and figure out what's where.
exactly. It's becoming more and more convoluted, and if you're new to the hobby, yeah, you're probably gonna have a hard time finding.
Yeah,
like,
you're like, what
why
the
do
fuck
people
is
keep talking about these Eladrin? Where the hell are they?
Yeah, what the fuck is
Oh,
a,
they're in a Mordenkainen's Tome of Foes. Like what?
what the fuck is a
What is
Mordenkainen?
that?
Yeah.
So I mean, it's not perfect. Definitely, it's been interesting, and I mean, it's creative and cool in its way, but it's maybe not the most optimal way to do it.
No, and maybe that has something to do with like their publication restraints and like the way they have to make the game, like the like kind of how they have to assemble teams to write
Maybe.
this information.
I don't know.
I kind of wonder what's going on at Wizards a lot. Like, do you guys care about us?
I mean, yeah. My phone just died.
Oh man, let's call it a game.
We're calling it a game. All right. Bye. Talk to you guys later.
The Dungeoncast.